What is going on, YouTube? So coming back with my Georgia preview, and go ahead and jump right into it. So start with my three key players. First one is Jacob Eason, the incoming freshman quarterback, and recruited as a 5-star, probably number one pro-style quarterback in the country. I think he was just the number one quarterback in the country last year. He's coming into a team that just has heavy turnover. This is a Georgia team that will be probably implementing a whole new offensive style. He does have weapons at wide receiver between Isaiah McKenzie, Terry Godwin, and Reggie Davis. I don't know how much they trust Reggie Davis, though, at this point. But he should have a little bit of help along the offense. He's still in a quarterback battle with Grayson Lambert, probably, but I think this is one he's probably going to win. It seems like he's the guy for Kirby Smart. So move into my second key player, and I've got Nick Chubb. Obviously, Georgia's biggest name, biggest superstar, and hopefully a guy that can stay healthy this year. Obviously went down against Tennessee last year with that knee injury, just a catastrophic ACL tear. If you remember seeing that injury last year, just kind of made you cringe. Glad he's back though, and hope that he can come back even stronger than he was this past year. So moving to my third key player, and that is Dominic Sanders, the pretty much all everything for Georgia's defense. Georgia defense that returns a decent amount of players in the secondary: Malcolm Parrish, Quincy Mager, a few of the other guys that are some of the bigger names along this defense. But Dominic Sanders, all SEC player last year, leads I believe the number one pass defense in the SEC last year, and they're going to have to be good again this year if they want to compete in the SEC East. Like I mentioned before, a very competitive, very much improved SEC East. And one more thing before I move on from the defense is I think Trenton Thompson's got to take that next step up this year as the number one recruit in 2015. I think he's got to show that he was deserving of that ranking. Not a huge 2015 freshman season for him. So move on to my two X factors, and first one is Kirby Smart, new head coach for Georgia. Mark Rick's out, and the interesting thing to see with Kirby Smart is how the offense goes. Obviously, a great defensive coordinator at Alabama, but doesn't really have much experience with the offense, and with how much turnover, how much uncertainty there is in this offense with bringing in a new quarterback, and then having a very injury-prone running back, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. If this offense is even somewhat more effective than they were last year, then this could be a very dangerous Georgia team, because I think this will be one of the better defenses in the SEC. So move on to my second X factor, which is Nick Chubb's health. And obviously it's one of the biggest things for Georgia. It's not like they don't have weapons behind him at running back. They do have a very deep backfield. They always do. Brandon Douglas and especially Sony Michel are two very solid options behind Nick Chubb, but they are not Nick Chubb. He is a top 5 running back in the country, and he's something that Georgia has to have if they want to be able to win the SEC East, at least in my opinion, unless Jacob Eason comes through and just absolutely kills the SEC, just lights it on fire, and you can't really bank on that. So move on to my trap game, which is the Missouri Tigers. This is a team that bested Georgia to win the SEC East for 2013 and 2014, and a team that you can never really count out. You can tell that now. Obviously, last season was a rough season for Mizzou, just in almost every single way possible. They lose their head coach, Gary Pinkel, of 18 years or something like that. And then, obviously, all the quarterback stuff happening. But anyway, it comes before a big game at Ole Miss, and then the game after that, Tennessee. So while it is on the road, this is a game that Georgia's going to have to be able to take seriously if they don't want to if they don't want to lose out on the SEC East. Like I said, no one ever knows how Mizzou's going to show out. So move on to my biggest game, and that is the Tennessee Volunteers. Team that beat Georgia last year for the first time in a while, and they do get Tennessee at home, and Tennessee is expected to be one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the SEC East this year, next to Florida and Georgia. And if Georgia wants to win the SEC East, this is a must-win game. Obviously, Florida's a big one also, but Florida and Tennessee are probably their 2 biggest games, Tennessee being right in the middle of a stretch of at Ole Miss before and at South Carolina after. So they're going to have to be able to take care of business there. Like I said, if they want to move forward in the SEC and make it to this SEC championship game. So move on to my record prediction for Georgia, and I have them at 10-3, which I believe was their record in 2015. Now, the beginning part of their schedule is not doing them any favors. They have to start out at home against North Carolina, a very good team from the ACC, and they got to go to Ole Miss like 3 weeks later. Then they got Tennessee at home, and then they got to go face South Carolina on the road after that. And after that, they get Florida, and then 2 weeks later, they get Auburn. Now, the latter half of the season is pretty easy after you get Florida out of the way. Pretty much the hardest game is Auburn, then you got at Kentucky, UL Lafayette, and then Georgia Tech. So not really anything too scary there, but I do still think this will be probably a 2-loss team during the regular season, and then a team that, I don't know. I feel like it's either going to be 3 loss during the regular season or 2 loss during the regular season, then loss in a bowl game. Feels like it's going to be another 10-3 season where they're able to look up into next year. But anyway, that pretty much does it for this video. Coming back later today or tomorrow with my Oregon preview, which will be my final one of the day. But that's pretty much it. See ya.